welcome to my kitchen. My name is Karina and today we're going to be making Empanadas de Maduro. And inside we're going to make a guava cheese filling. This is my favorite go-to snack for any day, a great day, a bad day. It's crunchy, it's gooey, it's salty, it's sweet, it's everything you look for in a snack. Now, plátano maduros are basically a plantain that has been ripened to its fullest potential. It's mostly yellow, it has a little bit of brown spots on it. That's what we're looking for here, guys. Now, I went ahead and pre-boiled my plantains. I cut them into 1.5-inch cubes, threw them in some boiling water for 8 minutes, and I have them right here. They're nice and hot and ready to go. To this, I'm simply going to add 1.5 tablespoons of butter. Now, this is just one plantain. You can definitely double this recipe if you want some more. Plantains are hot, so it's going to melt the butter as we start to incorporate it in with this puree. Alright, so I have my plantains nice and mashed up here, and it's time to continue to assemble the ingredients for the dough. Here I have 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Salt is super important for sweet and savory applications. It's basically a flavor amplifier, so you don't want to skip out on the salt here. Now here I have what's called a masa harina, which is a pre-cooked ground cornmeal, and you can find it, the brands in the stores are called masarepa or pan, P-A-N. If you can't find it, you can definitely substitute it for an oat flour or an almond flour. I bet you in pre-cooked grits would be great, but just make sure it's a pre-cooked corn product, not something that's just like a cornmeal, because you'll end up with something very gritty. I'm just going to dump that right in. It's 1/2 cup. And equal amounts of liquid to dry ingredients, so 1/2 cup of milk. Now, usually these boxes tell you to use water, but I like to add some flavor whenever I can, so I'm going to use some milk. I highly recommend you use regular milk or any kind of nut milk of your preference. And then that just mixes up. That's it. Just a few simple ingredients and you have your dough. Once you have that all nice and incorporated, I made it into a nice little ball, and I'm going to set that aside and let it set up. It's a little bit sticky at this point, but as the time goes on, the next few minutes, it'll start to become like a really supple, soft pasta, almost like a pasta dough. Now it's time to work on the filling. This is the simplest filling you could ever imagine. It has 2 ingredients, one being 2/3 of a cup of already pre-shredded mozzarella that I have here. And the second ingredient is what I believe makes this dish so special and succulent. It's guava paste. Now, this is a guava paste I found at World Market for $1.99. You can't go wrong. I definitely recommend it. You can probably also find it online somewhere. I only need about 2 ounces of this 14-ounce block, so I'm just going to cut a little sliver off. And then, once I cut my little sliver off, I'm going to cut that sliver into tiny little, almost shreds. Just a little bit. And I'm going to save the rest of this for later. It has many applications. And then I'm just going to cut these into little strips. And then into little dices and incorporate that into the cheese. Okay, so I've cut the guava paste up into tiny little cubes, almost representing or almost replicating the shreds of the mozzarella. I'm going to put that right in and then mix that together. Now, I really want a homogeneous, it's going to be like clunky and chunky, but I definitely want a nice mixture of these 2 ingredients. I know it's simple and straightforward, but you definitely want to make sure you combine everything and really separate each one of those little pieces of guava. You can see here it's not the prettiest little mixture, but I promise you it tastes amazing and it's going to be a wonderful filling for empanadas. Okay, now it's time to assemble these babies. I have the dough here, the filling is ready to go. All we need to do is start making our empanadas. I'm going to cut this straight in half, separate this, and then separate that half into thirds. So this is gonna make 6 little empanadas. Almost looks like a little pie. Then I take each one of those little pie slices, roll them into a nice little ball, and then flatten it out with my hands. You can definitely use a tortilla press here, but I like the look of a handmade empanada. Okay, going to grab a spoon. We want about a tablespoon to, actually about a tablespoon and a half of that mixture right into the center. And then just fold it closed and crimp them together. No need for binder here to put water or anything like that. This dough is perfectly made to just smash together, and it'll form any shape that you want it to. And that's it. You can totally crimp the edges if you want to be fancy, but I like a little handmade empanada. I'm just gonna fold these up and get them going, and we'll start frying them up in just a few minutes. Alright, so here are my little bundles of joy. My empanadas are ready to be fried up. I have this pan here that I've been preheating for about 3 to 5 minutes, and I'm just gonna drop in some EVOO. I like extra virgin olive oil for this application, and because we only have 6, I'm gonna throw them all into the pan. And once you see that oil glistening, which it is already because I've had this pan preheating, you can go ahead and drop in your empanadas. Now, one tip I will say, while you are making these and shaping them with your hands, definitely want to make sure that they're nice and flat on each side. So one tip that I do at the end of each one is, after I'm done folding them up and clamping them up, I press down on them a little bit to make them nice and flat on both sides. That's just to make sure you get contact with the pan and make sure that they actually caramelize up nicely. Contact with the pan is a good thing. Turn this around, make sure the oil gets on all of them. They're going to sizzle up on both sides for about 5 minutes on each side, and then we'll come back and try them. And here they are. My empanadas are nice and crispy and delicious. They smell wonderful, and I can't wait to taste them. I did drain them off on a little paper towel prior to putting them on the plate. And then I did let them sit for about 8 minutes. I can't wait the full 10 before I went ahead and decided to try them. Here we go. You hear that crispiness? Look at that cheesiness. Delicious. Mmm. The ultimate delicious snack at the end of a hard day. Something homey to come home to. I hope you try this. Thank you for joining in, and I hope to see you soon.